Wait, are you recording right now?
Yes, it's Super Freak. I already
Oh,
know.
yeah. Okay. Oh, wait, what? But what's funny is that the first time I played it, that's when you asked about being unhinged. And I'm like, wait, what's going on?
Oh, I didn't hear it at that point. No.
You didn't hear it? That's why I was like, oh, this is hilarious. It's like, is that why he's asking?
No. Okay, so.
Are you at home right now?
Yeah. I'm at home.
What were you doing?
Stop playing that music. What the... Oh, dude. I'm so chronically online. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's true. You know what I
It
mean?
is.
Like, I'm trying to cut down the amount of time that I'm online every week, but
Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Isn't chronically online just being online now?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I'm
Like, that is life.
Yes.
I feel like that term would have been more applicable like in the early 2000s when like internet was a place.
Yeah.
Like it was your computer in your room
Yeah.
or your living room. And yeah, you were taking time away from other things to be online. And if you're online too much, you were chronically online. Now, like it's a part of life. It's with you all the time.
Yeah.
You always have your phone. You're probably on your phone again when you get home. So
I'm
like,
literally
I don't
on my
know.
phone right now.
Yeah.
As you were talking,
and it has a negative connotation. Like
it does.
You know, it's seen as a bad thing, like being online too much. But I mean, I didn't, you know, it is to a degree, but I don't know. It's just life now. You know what I mean?
It is just
like the movies we saw growing up pointed towards us anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the futurist movies we saw, like this is how we get there. I think we're in the midway point.
Yes. I was going to say that not everybody, but even when I think about it, you know, we think about boomers, like they're addicted to Facebook now. Facebook is just, it's just old people book. You know what I mean? Like I haven't been on that thing in 4 years. And I was having a conversation with my grandma a couple of months ago, and we were talking about Facebook, and I was like, oh, I haven't been on there in years. And she's like, oh, it's just ads now. It's just like ads and people I don't want to see. But there's this like cultural expectation on Facebook, especially for the older generation. It's like, you know, unfriending is a big deal, you know, and they're so integrated in that sense. And then, you know, they got their Bejeweled games and their slot apps. So everybody has a reason to be chronically online, it seems.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I mean, I'm fairly confident in making a social diagnosis that more often than not, being chronically online is more harmful than it is helpful. We may not realize it. Like, but at the same time, it's very apparent. I mean, there's studies out there that are like, the more time you spend on your phone, the more depressed you are, the more anxiety you have. You know, TikTok, literally, as of last week, the last, you know, we're October 16th here. Last week, there was leaked conversations between executives who are like, yes, we need to design this app in a way that is capturing people's attention. And like the way they were describing it was so like wicked and so malicious. And then they were like, at the same time, in the same breath, they were like, but we need to do it in a way where we're like, in the public, they don't think we're doing bad things. And so that's wild. You have these people in power and with money who know that there's a way to design these apps to be addicting, and most of everybody, I mean, at least millennials and down, are on TikTok. It took me, I fought it so long. I didn't get on TikTok until about a year and a half ago, and now I'm not hooked on it. I can still say that now I'm not hooked on it because I really maybe open TikTok once a week, even if at that. I'll like open it when I'm eating dinner sometimes, and
that explains a lot.
The way that my algorithm is set up on TikTok, it's all like paranormal and like cryptid or like archaeological. Some guy in the desert 300 miles from here finding ruins. What do you mean it explains it?
So I've heard other people say that they don't like TikTok.
Yeah.
The way they do Instagram.
Yeah.
And one recurring thing I've noticed is that they're not on it much, and they haven't spent the time on TikTok that they have on Instagram.
Right.
So the algorithm there doesn't know what it is they like. So you know what I mean? So if you're not putting the time in, it's not learning what you like. It's not showing you the things you would want to see.
Of course.
So right now I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to say social media isn't that bad. Yeah. Obviously what they're doing and the way they go about it is bad, but just the idea of being online isn't a bad thing. Or being on the internet too much, I don't think is a bad thing. I get why people get depressed. Like I totally get it. If you're seeing like your peers doing better than you are, they're in good shape, or they have better money than you, or they're just living a good life, and you are wherever you are, like I totally get that. But maybe it is algorithm, but I don't see things that would depress me.
Really?
Like the things I see are like, I see cool things. Like I see like music stuff. Whoa. I see usually music, but music. I see film related things. I see art, a bunch of Sonic shit.
On TikTok?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't see things that would make me feel sad.
Right.
And so at this point, because the algorithm wasn't always around, or it wasn't as...
No, that's powerful or smart.
Yeah, it wasn't as developed as it is now. Like we were on there before 2015.
Yeah.
So at that point, like it was very like rudimentary. Like it would just kind of, it was just a feed, and it would just show you things that kind of pertain to what you like. And that was it. It wasn't as nuanced as it is now. Like now it gets right to it. Like an example is YouTube. So I recently started using my laptop again. I hadn't used it in months because I didn't need to. And in that time, I guess it erased all the cookies I had.
Oh.
So it was like blank. Like if I bought it new, there was nothing on the home screen.
Yeah.
So within 5 minutes, and I did this intentionally, I looked up things I would usually look up. And yeah, within minutes, they already showed me things that I would like. I didn't have to sift through anything. Like I could, if I wanted to, just go on my home screen and find things I like rather than like searching for them. But where I was going was that I'm going to be that guy in the sense that it comes down to the person's situation and what it is that they're actually doing on social media, because everyone does something different.
Right.
You know, so like we're really into music, so I'm sure you see music a lot on like Instagram, right?
Well, that's debatable, but go on.
Okay. Okay, you like Nintendo. Do you see Nintendo a lot on your Instagram feed?
Yes.
Okay, so there we go. Or you tell me, like, what do you see in your feed?
Okay, so look. An aside here really quick. You know, the TikTok's executives were literally talking about how they are trying to push like sexy women to men so that they can get brought in, and then the algorithm switches to their interests. But some people never leave that. You know what I mean? So in other words, for those who are predisposed to addictions, at least like visual addictions, it's a hellscape. And so in that sense, it's just plain right evil. But in the broader sense that you're talking about, you are right. Like again, on my TikTok, you mentioned music. Like 50% is emo music. There's this like resurgence of emo music, hardcore, metalcore, and I'm seeing that type of content, whether it's like, oh, here's this show from 2008, Warped Tour, or some elder millennial talking about, you know, something. My TikTok is definitely structured in the way where it's things that I like. On Instagram, because I'm really only on Instagram for advocacy. I don't really have a personal Instagram in the sense that most people do. So I have 3 different accounts. I have my main account, which is the one most people follow. And like that discovery, that algorithm is pretty much Nintendo, anime, you know, cute stuff that I want to buy. And then on my alternative account, which is probably where I spend most of my time, that is like structured on satire and difficult conversations, sexual positivity, all of the adult content, like positive adult conversations are held there. And so my algorithm for that one is just memes, shit posting,
Yeah.
memes, garbage. And then on my personal account, which is basically a dead account, I haven't posted in like almost 2 years there. This was the first Instagram account I made like 3.5 years ago. When my therapist was like, yo, just make an Instagram and just start creating like for you. That was my first attempt. And then the main account I have now that's very successful, that's the second attempt. So my first attempt was like, I'm just gonna record myself making coffee and then document like my experience on medication or, you know, what I'm journaling, whatever. That kind of morphed into my personal account. Then I began to kind of post a little bit of what I used to back in the day of just like personal things, but it very quickly died out. And so I now use that account to essentially farm information for my main account. So the algorithm for that account is all mental health oriented, pop psychology, you know, bite-sized mental health tips. And I basically use that for inspiration to then create content for my main account. So the Instagram, it's clever in that way. Like it figured out the 3 ways in which I needed to use it, the algorithm. But for the longest time, and I can say this like because I've experienced it, all 3 of those accounts when I started, they were filled with like TikTok dancers, hot women.
Right.
And I wasn't looking any of that up. Not at all. But then I was watching it because I was like, whoa, something about the way that TikTok dances are. Like they're like construction in the way where they just capture your attention. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so then it started to snowball from there. And it was just like but then as I began to use my accounts for what I was using them for, then they started to change away. And now I really don't see any like content like that, except maybe on my alternative account, the 18+ one is kind of intermixed with that too, because the discussions on there are adult oriented or, you know, sexual education or sexuality, things like that. So it's a mix there. But yes, I agree that I agree that being online is good. You know, it's a lot of people have found their communities. I mean, think about people who live in rural spaces, rural communities. You know, they've found their communities. The possibilities with the internet is endless. You could learn to code. You could learn to garden. You could learn so much, and basically for free.
Everybody's coffee.
Yeah, everybody's doing it on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like there's a instructional video for whatever you want to get into on YouTube. And now with the advent of AI, which is controversial and I don't want to get into right now, you could learn so much more.
But we will. Well, we will.
Yeah, but we will. But you know, at the same time, our brains are not structured in a way where we can take in such immense information all the time.
That too, yeah.
And so we don't.
Yeah.
So we default to consuming garbage. You know what I mean? Like more or less. We default to being stuck in the algorithm. One of my best friend in the entire world a couple of years ago, like they were in angst and they were in fear, and we would have conversations because they were seeing so much like of what's wrong with the world. And granted, that's gonna naturally happen. The more that you are soaked in the reality of life, the more depressed you're going to be. I mean, think about, for most of human civilization, we did not know what was happening on the other side of the world, much less have the knowledge that other places existed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so our emotional bandwidth is just constantly stretched to the point of breaking time and time and again. We just cannot bear the weight of the tragedies that are going all around the world.
Yeah.
And so they were just beginning to be so affected by that. And I would tell them, I was like, you're watching that stuff. Like all the accounts you follow are political and social justice. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. I do the same. But the more that you're feeding into that, the more that you're reading those comments, the more that you are looking at those comments, the more that you are sharing those stories, the more you're going to be fed. And all you're going to see is examples of this type of hate crime, this type of violence against this people group, and you start to become paranoid in your life. You're like, it's everywhere, it's everywhere. And I'm like, I remember it was a big argument between us because I was like, where? Like, we live in LA, we live in like such a culturally diverse place. And again, not saying that this doesn't happen. I'm not saying that Asian hate doesn't happen in LA. I'm not saying that, crimes against people of color are not happening. But I was saying to the degree in which they were becoming paranoid, I was saying, your world right now, your mind is so in that reality that it's affecting you mentally. So I was like, maybe tone it down a little bit. Like, and they decided to just basically stop use social media for quite a while. And even to this day, they're not even on social media as much anymore. And I mean, I could at least say that that isn't much of the issue now, in our relationship. It's not, there isn't that much strain.
So they seem like they're better off now?
Well, of course. I think anybody who is off, or at least on
Mm.
social media at a minimum, is better off. You know what I mean? I mean, have you ever realized that? Have you ever come across people who just aren't online and they're like a different breed? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like an enigma almost.
It depends a lot on like the person you're speaking to. Usually they're like a little bit older. It's super
Yeah.
rare when it's someone like our age or even
Yeah.
younger.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you do meet these people, like it's so different because it sounds really cheesy, but you have your real life, day-to-day thing, and then you have your online life. And so there's so much of like culture happening that's only online that's not happening in real life.
Yeah.
So it's music, memes, whatever. They're not in on that stuff.
Yeah.
And we spend so much time online that there is a difference in people now.
Yeah.
They could be like leveled in the same way, like same age, have grown up on the same things, so on and so on. But there is a difference between someone who is online and someone who's not.
Yeah.
And then from there, it just depends on like your chemistry with the person. Sometimes it's not a big deal. Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Like I've seen cases where that is a big deal. Like I can't like relate to them. Like I want to show them something, but I'm like, all right, they're not on Instagram, so they're not gonna get it.
Yes.
Or sometimes I'll show them anyway, but there's a lot of context to the meme. Like the meme isn't just a meme, it's a reference to something else. Or sometimes there's like somewhat of a history to this meme. It's a pop culture event, or this meme is a riff on like something that's happened before several times over, So unless they're online, you have to explain it to them. It's like explaining a joke. Like you can only do so much explaining. Either they get it or they don't,
Right.
And I'm sure it's being looked into now. There's going to be a really cool documentary that gets made at some point where they examine someone who's online and someone who isn't. And we're going to learn so much about that. Kind of sort of like when you meet people that have been like homeschooled,
Yeah.
they're very different than someone who went to school. They've learned the same things, have the same high school diploma.
Yeah.
But socially, they interact with people very differently.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So on paper, it'll seem like a good idea to someone. If you're a parent and you want your kids, if you're like hyper concerned, you want them in one place and all that shit, then yeah, it seems like, they're going to be as well off as someone who went to public school. But no, like they come out with a totally different reality. And is it good, is it bad? Like, there are pros and cons to everything, but
yeah,
it is a visible difference. So going back to being online, the reason why I asked if your friend is better off is because if we've had a bad experience with something, we'll naturally pivot away from it completely. So let's say, I don't know, you don't usually eat spicy food, right? And then the one time you get something that's really spicy, it's gonna hurt your stomach, you're not gonna feel well. And then anytime after that, when someone invites you to eat something that has, spice in it, you're gonna be like, no. And in reality, all you have to do is like build your tolerance, start somewhere lower, work your way up. So the fix isn't to avoid it entirely, just manage, how you take it in.
Yeah.
So social media, I think, is the same way. Like we're not taught how to do these things. Like we were talking about this before, the younger millennial generation specifically, we were the guinea pigs for so many fucking things that I don't think has ever happened before in fucking society,
Yeah.
So, so the way it used to be was that the algorithm would show you things based on like your Your engagement was if you liked something, you liked a post, and that was it. So if you
Yeah.
liked music or whatever, it would show you music related posts.
Yeah.
Then it more involved. So you had to like something, save it, and share it and comment on it. So you had to literally engage with those accounts, those things. Then it would show you more of that. And one of the many downsides is that, let's say you're like someone like you started a new account, and maybe your aspiration was to make a big account.
Yeah.
You're starting a new business, right? You need your account to be as big as possible for your business to, to go on.
Yeah.
But unless, and again, we're not told this stuff, but unless people are like leaving comments on your thing and sharing them and saving them, your account would only go so far.
Yes.
It wasn't enough to like things anymore.
Nope.
So you could have 1,000 likes and it would only do so much. The equation, I don't remember where I saw this, but there is kind of equation to it. So likes were only a fraction of the maneuvering that goes on. And funny enough, saving a post does a lot more. It counts as like 5 likes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so going back to someone who might have a hard time on social media, if you're on it, then that probably means you like being online. So if you're having a hard time, in my pseudo therapist advice would be get off of it temporarily.
Yeah.
And then when you're ready, be conscious of the things you engage with. So not just the things you search up on your feed, but like what are you literally engaging with? So if you, like you mentioned, you were seeing like a lot of like dance videos.
Yeah.
And you didn't like them, but they kept coming up.
Right.
And because you were still engaging with them, you were like watching them. You would tap on them.
Yes.
And you were watching enough of it. So that told the algorithm, oh, you like this shit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to keep showing you a certain amount of that.
Yeah.
So I would recommend to someone, take the time you need away from it, come back and make sure that, hopefully you figured out what more of your triggers are.
Yeah.
And try to avoid them as best as you can. So understand that to a certain degree, you're going to see things that you don't want to see, not in a bad way, but just things, and because it shows everyone a certain amount of everything. So even if you're not really into memes, the feed will show you memes. If you're not into nature, it'll still show you like nature related posts. I don't care for influencers, but every once in a while I'll get stuff because if a post is doing well, the algorithm shows it to everyone, thinking, oh, this is something universal. It's going to show it to more and more people until it dies down. So manage your stuff and hopefully you'll have like a better experience. It's a complicated thing because you probably have like other things going on in life, whatever those things are. And then I don't think people actually pay attention to like, it can't be understated how much what you search up will have an effect on you. Again, we don't know to talk about these things, but also for understandable reasons, we're not going to be open about everything we look up,
Of course. Yeah.
Like you never post your search history on anything.
Right. Although, to be honest with you, I can't.
So that's another thing. It's like, it's not a matter of like being dishonest, but
yeah,
being just more honest with yourself.
Of course. There's so much I can say to this. There's so much I want to say to this. Oh my gosh, where do we begin? First of all, going back to the studies, this is like our generation's asbestos and,
probably
lead.
Actually.
Like we're going to be 80, 90 before they figure out. Yeah, so we just wrapped up a 70-year conclusion like research and this is actually bad for you. Although, we might figure out these things faster just because of how fast technology moves. But anyways, you were talking about like getting offline and like my response to that is, yeah, that's first of all, that's the right answer. Of course, I've said that many times, even on my own main account, like get offline. Like I've made posts about like, yo, it's okay to unfollow for a certain season. Like these accounts that are constantly doing good and bad, like they're showing you what you need to care about and what you need to advocate for. But at the same time, you're one person and you weren't created to hold all this in your brain. So I'm like, it's fine. Part of advocacy work is resting. Like you can unfollow and follow back later. Retreat, go back, dude. Rest. Like that is a form of protest. You know what I mean? Like you can't go all out always. You need to recharge. You need to gather yourself so that you can give the best of yourself. But the apps aren't designed in that way. They're designed to always keep your attention. In fact, again, citing again the TikTok leaks that happened last week, they had openly admitted to, yeah, let's put these notifications on TikTok, like, hey, you've been on here for quite a while, maybe you should get off. And they were like, they flat out said, like, just do that so that people are happy. Like, just do that so that they think we care, essentially. There's still Instagram and TikTok, they're still orienting and working their algorithms to keep you on there. That's why Instagram, for the longest time now, is pushing reels so much. I remember like 2 years ago, and still to this day, but a lot of the chatter between creators was, because creators, they're always influencers, they're always, unless they're incredibly successful, in which now they're just this enigma in of itself because they're making money. But if you're a smaller creator like myself or a small business, we're always complaining about Instagram and how much it sucks and how much it's not for creators, it's for attention. And so a lot of people a couple of years ago were saying, they're pointing out how Instagram is shoving reels in your face. And a lot of smaller accounts, a lot of small businesses, artists were hurting because they had to make reels. Like, and I don't even make reels to this day, but there's like empirical data to show that Instagram wants you to make reels because they want to be like TikTok. And the only way that your content's going to be seen is by getting into reels. And so nowadays you can find apps, you can find AI, you can find blog posts all about use this song. Right now, this song is trending. And so you've seen this. I mean, people will put this, Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter or, Chapel Roan, whatever. Like the latest song is going to be on the most random reels. It'll be like somebody making clay pots, and then it's Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter in the background. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because people love that song right now, they're gonna be, oh, I love hearing this part of the song because it gives me that dopamine. So they're gonna watch your video for longer. And then it goes on and on and on. I mean, there's guides on Instagram for creators that say, within the first 3 seconds, you need to capture people's attention, and then you can go into this.
Nice.
And now we have the way that's evolved, we have like constant captions on screen and then emojis to match those captions. And then there's the running joke of like, here's something important on the top half of the video, and then the bottom half of the video, it's a Minecraft Let's Play. You know what I mean? It's like, and then there's that constant joke of like, that we need this other form of entertainment now to keep our attention for what's important. And so it's easy to say, yo, log off, but not easy to do. You know what I mean? Like, it takes so much willpower because you've got FOMO. You've got the fear of missing out. You're like, I'll cut down my time.
You unintentionally brought up like another, I think, 2 bigger problems. So one of them is addiction.
Yeah.
If you have an addictive personality, you're probably screwed. And you're probably going to need like actual help to like get over this, especially if you had problems with like the way you interact on social media.
Oh yeah.
It's like, people get addicted to naturally addictive things like candy. Cigarettes are designed to be addictive. Alcohol isn't designed to be addictive, but people get addicted anyway. You get addicted to things you like, from what I understand. And so for someone, this could be just as bad as those things, but worse in that you don't pay for it.
Oh, yeah.
It's all on your phone. You know what I mean? Like, you still have to go buy, sugar's everywhere, but you still have to go buy it. You have to go buy the cigarettes. You have to go buy the alcohol. You have to go out of your way to get it. And with social media, it's right on your phone. If you are an addictive person, you're really going to have the system set up for you and or come to terms with the fact that, like, you didn't know you were an addict because you technically weren't doing anything harmful. You weren't doing a drug and you weren't eating a certain way. So you don't know that potentially, but you're probably gonna have to get like actual help to manage that. And if not, like, again, I'm going to speak for myself. Like, if you have hobbies and whatnot, it's a lot easier to log off. And that could be like anything, playing games, exercise, playing an instrument. you like to draw, cook, whatever. And this is where the boomers might be right, is that we didn't, well, not we, but the amount of people who didn't have like in-person hobbies has only grown however much.
Oh, yeah.
Just over the past 10 years, 20 years. So if you didn't already have a hobby or your hobbies involved you being on your phone, yeah, it is going to be hard to detach from that and to find a thing or things to occupy your mind.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be the hard part because some people like don't have like a lot of friends, or maybe they don't have siblings. Like if you have siblings, you can always like just play with them, or hang out with them.
Yeah.
If you don't have either of those things, or maybe you're just not close to your family, like that's when people start retreating into their phones.
Yeah.
And those are the things that are going to be hard to get through or work through because, yeah, if you don't have a in-person connection with anyone, what are you really going to do? Your hobby only gets you so far. You can go exercise, but you can't exercise for 8 hours a day, you know? You can't cook for 8 hours a day. So it's a lot. And the companies behind social media, they do deserve a lot of blame, but some of it is within your control.
Yeah.
And at some point, people need to it needs to be taught how to use social media. And what I hate is that, I'm sure you've seen this too, where people buy their kids' phones way before they're even old enough to know what to do with them. They'll be like 5 or 6 years old and they have a phone. Like, why does your kid need a phone?
Yeah.
If it's a matter of safety, the kid is 5. They should be with you in school or with a babysitter. That's it. You know, if safety is a concern, they should be one of those places. If you don't know where your kid is, you're the problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And along with that is, I don't know why, but parents have always done a really shitty job of helping their kids manage technology. So like for us, we have like relatively young parents. So they didn't grow up with like phones or anything, but they grew up with like almost with video games. So for a good chunk of their lives, they've known what video games are, but they never like really bothered to figure out how this works and, you know, how to discipline their kids in using anything involving technology. So what parents usually do is that they sit them down in front of the TV, let them play, and that's it. That's why you see all these parents complaining about violence, is that they were buying their kid whatever game they wanted. So yeah, your kid's gonna ask you for that gnarly game that's rated M for mature, has all kinds of crazy violence, and now you have this directed hostility towards gaming where it's you as a parent. You never took the time to like figure out what's in the games or took the time to really get to know your kid to know maybe my kid shouldn't be playing for too long. And that hasn't gone away. Like I used to work in retail and I'll see even younger parents still not really applying or even giving thought to what they've been through. So there's a whole generation of parents now that don't have the excuse of like, well, when I was a kid, we didn't have any of this. They grew up with it for most of their lives. So it wasn't around when they were 5 or 6, but it was around when they were in their teens, you know?
Yeah.
So that's another huge problem that extends past social media. It's the way we are with technology.
Yes.
So even if you remove the algorithm, so let's say another social media company came out and they were trying to be the good company, you're still going to have people addicted to it because that's how we are now.
Yeah.
And we already have a thing at play where people are just used to being on their phones. So if they're not going to be on Instagram, they're already wired to be on their phones anyway. What do you make of all that?
I mean, I agree with everything there. And even, Gen Z are having kids now. So they really don't have an excuse because they really grew up with technology. And I agree. You have autonomy. You have free will. You can choose to get off. You can choose to lessen the amount of time that you're using these things 100%. Mm-hmm. Is it easy? No. Some people can go cold turkey and stop smoking, stop drinking like nothing. great, more power to them, but that isn't everybody. You know what I mean? And like you said, cigarettes are designed, like I said, processed foods are designed. It's all designed in a way keep you hooked, to keep you, because it's so easy. It's like we think in our head, we can't see the immediate. We can't see the immediate downsides, and that's why what I would say is, and what I try to do online is stress the importance of community. You know what I mean? Like, we live in a hyper individualistic culture where, yes, individualism is important. It's important to have your own likes, your own identity, your own expressions. All those things are important. We put too much stress on individual freedom at the expense of community. And I don't believe that we were ever created to be independent. I believe that we were created to be interdependent. So reliant on one another, but still solely unique. And that's why I stress the importance of community. It's like, yo, you got to tell your friends. You have to tell each other. But at the same time, you also have to be open to receiving criticism, helpful criticism. You know?
Constructive criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Yeah.
But the default is always to take everything so personally. The default is to, we don't think that person's trying to help us, or we have too much pride, or whatever. I mean, there's so many
Or they're being negative.
Yeah, they're being negative. You don't know me. You don't know how much time I'm spending, blah, 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 blah. And that's why, like, I think community needs to be stressed again. And I love, I was just having this conversation last week. I love, this is an increasing trend among Gen Z, right? Like, they're using dating apps less. They're using Tinder less. They're opting for more analog. That's another thing you can read up on.
You're about to touch on something. Go ahead.
They are opting for analog, and so in the dating realm, they're deleting their apps, and they're starting to do more in-person things. Why? Because they're realizing, holy crap, community is such a helpful thing. It's such a unique thing. You find better partners that way. You build better relationships that way. When you get involved in a running club or a D&D group, and again, every group is gonna have their toxic people, but you shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, these all take just critical thinking. I mean, and we can go on.
Why that is too?
Why?
I mean, you probably already do. The reason that is because that's the way we're wired. We're social creatures.
Yes, of course. Yes, 100%.
So that's what they're doing. By default, they're going back to the default setting.
Yep.
They were on their phones and dating wasn't working. So now they're opting to try to meet with people in person.
Yep.
That's them going back to the default setting.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Another thing too that you kind of were sort of getting into is that being in the United States, we're taught about, like, the individual and, like, you can do anything yourself, and all the great people who have did things themselves. Actually, no one does anything by themselves.
Yep.
Ever.
Yep.
Even the good person you like, or the good people.
Yeah.
Whoever they are, they didn't do the thing by themselves.
Heck yeah.
For example, you like an artist, right? They more than likely didn't teach themselves how to play all on their own. Even if they did, they didn't teach themselves how to record on their own.
Right.
Even if they bought their own equipment, at some point someone intervenes and helps them along the way. So right there, not on their own. After that, you have to have someone who's willing to, like, get your music out there one way or another. Eventually someone comes in and sees your 1,000 followers and they go, oh, cool, let me help you. Sometimes they end up being a manager, whatever. But at some point, it's another person. Eventually, you need someone who helps you manage your day-to-day shit. It's another person involved. And it goes on and on. So no one does anything on their own, ever.
Yeah.
And this is not a new concept.
Yeah.
The natives had a thing called, they had a term for it, but they understood that that's how things are done best, but also that's just how things are. Yep. We do things with the help of other people.
Of course.
And as part of the colonial process, all those things are removed.
Oh, yeah.
And replaced with, like, inherently, not just toxic, but just, like, inferior ways of going about things.
Oh, yeah.
So this being one of them, you're taught the lie that if you want to, you can do everything on your own, but no, like, you can't.
Oh,
Example here, like, we're on the podcast, it's 2 people on the podcast. You're putting together a collective, and then the stream you do is with another person. And that person's also helping you a lot on that end. So right there, like, and you might be the face of it, and you might be the brainchild, but execution comes with a lot of other people. And none of that is a bad thing. That just,
No.
one, is not a bad thing. And then two, that's how anything has always been ever. And I don't know if people know that. There's a TikTok guy. I'm going to plug him in. I think he goes under the name of Vatica. He's a white dude with a shaved head. And he usually talks about musicians. And he'll go back in their history. And it's not always the people you think it is. So usually you look at like the pop artists and go, well, they didn't do it on their own. They had parents or,
Nepo
they
babies.
knew someone.
Yeah.
Or Nepo baby, right? But it'll be people that you like Blink-182. They didn't grow up. A lot of punk bands did not grow up poor. They were suburban kids. And that band in particular, they were like well-off suburban kids. So nothing against them, but one, that makes it easier to decide to become a musician. So they were able to decide one day, oh, I want a guitar. Parents bought them one.
Yeah.
Oh, can you give me a right to do whatever? Okay. Like their parents were just able to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas my parents, like they worked until whenever, and they did that every day. So even if I wanted to ride, unless it was important, it was going to be a no because they were too tired.
That's right.
On top of the fact that I couldn't just say I want a guitar and they go get me one.
Yeah.
So it's right there. Along with that, like as you go up the fucking social and economic ladder, you come in contact with people that are like you, who also have connections. So you'll find a lot of times that people could just decide to get into music, go to someone and say, hey, I want to sign to a label. Or do you know someone who can help me get my music out? Or do you know someone who can help me do this? And they'll have the resources to do that. So once again, not on their own. And there's a bunch. I named Blink-182, but there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another. I can't think of another one, but he has a lot of examples and backed with a lot of evidence too. And it's not like a salacious thing.
Yeah.
Like there's no like gossip involved. He's just pointing out that these people, like them or not, didn't do it on their own. No one does.
Yeah. So important. And I mean, not to get too political, but you mentioned it earlier. You said, colonial, right? When you,
Yeah.
I mean,
Colonialism.
Not to, you have to address the elephant in the room.
White people.
Capitalistic structures are just
Made by who? Made by who?
Capitalistic structures are just
You're right. Made by who?
It's a system of oppression. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Stop.
Made by who?
Who
made them?
I'm not dancing around the subject. I'm just trying to get my point across.
I know, but the people need to know that.
Yeah, I know. It's
you're
white
about your
centric.
business.
It's white centric, and But I love white people. I got some white friends.
I don't know. That's one of us.
Well, white privilege is a thing. Intersectionality is real. Systematic oppression is legitimately real. I mean, the empirical data is just everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah, by observation, by any metric or data you want to use. Yeah.
From the prison system being modern day slavery to gerrymandering.
The pipeline, doggy. The pipeline.
Yep, the pipeline, dude. The pipeline. I mean, man. Anyways, I digress.
How do we tie this back to social media?
So to bring it back to the faux community, it's social media. Look, final verdict. The internet is great. Technology is great.
Mm-hmm.
Social media is great.
Mm-hmm.
But without community, like without real life community, it's gonna destroy you. You know what I mean? And unless you have the willpower to discipline yourself, you're going to become. I mean, the term right now is brain rot, right? Like you're just going to be brain rot induced, and without balance. I mean, the saying goes in moderation. And yeah, there can be such thing as too much community. There can be such thing. I mean, that's how we get cults. You know what I mean? Like, there can be such thing as too much community. I mean, I just think it boils down to balance. And I always use is the word endemic. Like we are in an endemic of lack of community.
Right.
And until we get back into that, we're just going to be consumed by many vices. I mean, that's just kind of life, though. Like dodging vice after vice after vice until
Yeah.
you gain the wisdom to realize what's really important in life, and you define that for yourself, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, the internet is great. Social media can be good. Um, there are a lot of really bad things happening in the world. Hey, it's Michael here. Sorry for that jump scare. I decided to end this episode right here because we talked for a total of 2 hours and 41 minutes. So I'm just going to cap this one here at around 50 minutes and then edit the rest of the 2 hours or so into maybe another episode or two. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to us shoot the shit, and I would love to hear any feedback that you guys have for us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.